This is episode 208 of GI Joburg. My name is Steve, and this is the Snake Eyes GI Joe Origins movie review. Yep, we're going to be getting into it, firstly with the non-spoilers, and then the spoilers. I'm actually sitting in the cinema moments away from watching it, and fortunately, I'm not alone. Fresh from Sergeant Slaughter's Slaughterhouse, it's Xazyl Phoenix.
Rocking the Sarge hat.
Outstanding. Opening remarks, there could be more Sarge in this movie. That would suit you just fine.
I would. It could be 100% Sarge, the movie, with a cameo by Snake Eyes, and I would fucking love that.
Oh man, if and only. Well, catch us on the flip, guys. We'll be coming at you with a review in mere moments. Here we go. So not even an hour has elapsed since the credits rolled, and I have to admit, at this point, the biggest feeling I'm experiencing has got to be relief. Because Snake Eyes GI Joe Origins is not a bad film.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I don't know. I didn't go into it with any expectations. I knew it was a Hollywood action movie based on something that I enjoyed as a child. And that can always be hit and miss. So I didn't want to come in with any emotions. I checked my emotions at the door, and I came out feeling good about it.
I went one step further, Xazyl, and I set my expectations below the basement. Like, I was expecting it to be shit. For the simple reason that both previous G.I. Joe live-action films, which I watched in preparation for this, just reminded me how far wrong Hollywood got it. Like, two strikes, basically. They made two G.I. Joe live-action films that really played down to the audience. It talked down to the audience.
Right.
It treated us like children. You know, it acknowledged that this was a toy property and never set the bar any higher than making action figures, you know, smashed together on the screen.
Having said that, Snake Eyes the movie does not have any action figure moments. Like the Rise of Cobra had those accelerator suits, which were an obvious pull to get the action figures going, advertise it as a kid's movie. It's a bit of action there, but Snake Eyes never once did I think, okay, this is to sell toys. There was nothing there that just seemed outwardly too extreme.
The story came first, I guess,
right.
is what you're trying to say. Like, this wasn't a case of like, let's push toys first and weave a storyline around that. I feel like the origin story was in the driving seat of why people did what they did. And to that end, like in a broad stroke, and this section of the review will be non-spoilers. We'll put in time codes in the description below if you want to jump around a bit. Like if you want to avoid the spoilers completely, because there will be spoilers later, we'll have that time coded and tell you well in advance to stop listening in case you wanted to go in without anything spoiled. But I would say that this film definitely placed character motivations and their journey at the forefront.
You get a sense that they thought it through. They put an idea forward for what they wanted to achieve by the end, and then worked it, I guess, with fluidity to get to those moments. There was no moment in the movie where I felt out of place. Like it didn't seem like anything was dropped in there unnecessarily. You know,
it was pretty lean.
Yes, you can say it was lean.
Very lean storytelling, and a delightfully low stakes kind of film. Whereas the first live action G.I. Joe films were literally the fate of the world hanging in the balance. This was a very personal story. It lives up to its surtitle of being an origins movie by showing the titular character Snake Eyes is where he situates himself at the beginning of his story, and his arc is completed by the time we reach the end. He has gone through a gamut of emotions and switching of his motivations, and at no point did I feel like anything was particularly strained. I thought, yeah, I buy it. I buy what this man is going through.
Yeah, it's a movie about family more than anything else. I think that's the theme. The theme is family.
Fast and the Furious 9. Wait
Right.
a minute.
No, oh gosh. But it's I don't know. That's their theme. Their theme is family, and when you build something around something that most people have a connection to, whether it be a positive experience or a negative experience, you can relate to family being a driving force. Whereas you might not be able to relate to global disaster. Well, actually, we probably can relate to global disaster.
Yeah, we're living through it.
Right. Yeah.
This is a chop socky film. It is situating itself squarely in a martial arts movie genre. So, take it or leave it. It's definitely not the guns blazing GI Joe flavored adventure that the previous outings have been. And in so doing, the martial arts makes sense. I must say that in previous outings, when you are dealing with global terrorist organizations and very well-armed counter-terrorist units that have tanks and planes, and helicopters and massive weapons, two guys running around clashing swords together seem horribly out of place. But when you dial the focus back to make it essentially a martial arts story dealing with a martial arts dojo, a ninja clan, a secret organization hidden in the mountains of Japan, then it suddenly becomes far more fitting to have these encounters. And to that end, I've got to congratulate the stunt coordinator, the fight choreographers, for delivering this sumptuous chop socky film. I have to lean into the fact that the martial arts was pretty good.
For a martial arts movie, the martial arts were top notch. And that can be, I don't think that it was over the top. This was not Matrix level, unbelievable martial arts skill. I believed that for the most part, when they were scaling something, if they were jumping over something, if they were landing somewhere, I believed that person could do it. When it came time for swordplay, you didn't question whether or not a gun was going to be the better option in this scenario. It was just swords flying, and it was just popcorn-worthy martial arts entertainment.
And beautifully shot as well. I have to just pour some kind of compliments on the cinematography of the piece.
Even the alleyways had great contrast and colours to them. Every scene that they had in Tokyo, it was a
new retro wave synth pop,
right?
Wet dream,
exactly that, and
neon lights, rain. I mean, it was sumptuous filmmaking, frame for frame, beautifully shot.
It was thick with imagery, and there was I believe that there are no dark alleyways at that location. It's
narrow streets, and then you flip the script and move into very kind of rural Japanese settings, up in the hills, forested walks in dawn and dusk settings, everything kind of dim and moist. God, I can never say that word with a straight face. Let's just say dim and wet, fresh from an evening of rain. Beautiful. I just come back to the point I made earlier, and that's my overwhelming emotion at the moment is one of relief, because I went in expecting it to be piss poor. And most of us are. We're all dyed-in-the-wool GI Joe fans from day one, lifelong fans who ask the question of Hollywood that if they're not going to tell the canonical Snake Eyes story that we all know like the back of our hands, then they better have a damn good substitute. And I know this might cost me credit in many people's eyes, might even cost me listeners and subscribers, but I think they happen to find a damn good story.
I think they have a way of telling the story, and then right when you think you know where it's going, it flips it. but not in a way that, and I hate the term, subverts expectations, because we already had expectations going in. So they're either going to do the exact thing you want them to do, or they're going to do a variation of that, or something that's completely different. And I feel like in this instance, it was they gave you a hint of what you want to see. They put scenarios out there, and then if you think you know where it's going to go, you're wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised by the fact that there's a G.I. Joe story to be told that is surprising to me. Because we're finally seeing Snake Eyes' initial, I suppose, reception at the Arashikage dojo. His training, the way they test him, and his kind of inception into this cult, I guess. All of that stuff is kind of fresh to me. We got glimpses of it in, issues 26 and 27 of the original ARA. We've always had it referenced in other animation endeavors like Resolute, and again in the live action films. But it was always just lip service. It was always these little vignettes, these, like, we're cutting back to a scene in the past at the Arashikage dojo to quickly cram in Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow's motivations. But here, they take the time with it, because they don't have a pressing other story that needs telling. It literally is all about Snake Eyes, what makes him tick, and the characters nearest and dearest to him.
Well, I'm always wary of any movie with origins in the title. always wary. In fact, I can't for the life of me think of anything good that starts with Rise of or has origins in it. But I honestly can't...
What, you didn't like Rise of Silver Surfer?
Oh, no.
X-Men Origins Wolverine? Yeah, I see your point, sir. Well done.
So, but having said that, I'm glad that they didn't try to shoehorn this origin into a G.I. Joe movie. And what I hope they do moving into the G.I. Joe movies is that I hope they don't give too much of a flashback to this movie. I want to see it move forward. Touch base on it, because there should be things that need to be touched on, but just keep the momentum going. And I think that had they tried to shoehorn Snake Eyes, his origin story at the beginning, or weaved through a G.I. Joe movie, it would have taken away some of the impactful moments that this movie had.
Of course, the next movie has to deal with the Sarge, right?
Simply put. Well, I mean, I don't know how. I don't know. Well, we'll get into spoiler territory soon enough, but without giving away too much, unfortunately, no, Sergeant Slaughter does not make a cameo in this movie. But I feel like there are moments that could warrant a good Sergeant Slaughter cameo. Speaking of cameos, Sergeant Slaughter does have a cameo account now for those that want to go in. Shameless plug for my boy Sarge. He knows his number one fan.
Okay, performances. Was there some weakness in the cast, or do you think everyone kind of nailed their role?
So I think for the most part, everyone acted their part well, but I think everybody had one of those cringeworthy facepalm situations or expressions or catchphrases or whatever, poses.
I think I mentioned to you in the cinema that, like, it was probably a late edition. Like, they got to set and literally someone said, we really need to work in a Yo Joe at some point.
Right.
And through gritted teeth, the director pulled the script writer aside and said, what do you think? And
I never thought that I would ever utter the words, "That was a limp Yo Joe." But yeah, it was almost like, did he just say that?
Yeah, it seemed a bit apologetic. I'm not quite sure what what was the overriding reason for that. Like, was it fan service, or was it just to kind of hammer home the fact that this is a G.I. Joe movie? So yes, someone's going to say Yo Joe at some point. Look, for my part, Henry Golding, magnificent work. Once again, it might cost me listeners and subscribers, but I'm going to say that I am on board with him taking up the mantle of Snake Eyes for the foreseeable future. You know, there are various readings of where this character can be taken. At his outset, Snake Eyes was the Avatar character, the character that we could all imprint upon because he was classified. He didn't have a file name or a birthplace. He didn't have a face at that point. You know, we've got the story part and parcel that had kind of been teased for a number of years before Larry finally tipped his hand and committed to something. But I am very interested to see where this goes because it humanizes him in ways that we never really got to see before. It gives him... It actually sullies Snake Eyes a little bit. You know, it makes him a far more complex character because he's not the most honorable, pure of heart, true blue hero, which is very, very interesting. All of a sudden, there is a dimension to Snake Eyes that has never been part of the Snake Eyes mythology. He might dress in black and have a name that fits an agent of Cobra more than an agent of GI Joe, but he was always super duper beyond question. Now we've got some more interesting depth to the Snake Eyes mythology. And while we're talking about performances, did you feel like Henry's accent was kind of a little bit wishy-washy, in and out?
I think it was in and out. Yeah, in and out. It was definitely... there were moments where he fell out of whatever accent he was trying to portray. Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head with that one. It was definitely in and out.
Which perhaps speaks to the international nature of this character. Like, he's not... He probably had an upbringing all over the world before we catch up to him as an adult. That's possible.
That is a possibility.
Similarly, Scarlet, I found her accent to not be convincingly general North American. Certainly not
Southern.
No. She was no Southern belle. But GI Joe in this continuity, I think once again they're going with the international angle from Rise of Cobra.
True, and as an Australian, I am all for the international hero part of GI Joe. Have always loved that part of it, where we didn't have a lot of people that as Australians could imprint on. As far as characters were concerned, unless they were dreadnoughts.
That's Sky, mate.
But we got Sky, mate, and he's one of ours. So
a pink trucker hat, yeah. And a glider.
Yeah, well, Sky, mate.
The boomerang.
I've never felt so attacked on a podcast before.
He's got kangaroos on his glider.
Does he? I know he's got a kangaroo on his hat.
I think that there's a kangaroo design. Maybe I'm misremembering.
Throw a picture up and...
Prove me wrong.
As far as I will touch on Andrew Koji as Storm Shadow. I believed his emotional moments. I believed he had passion, and up until a certain point he had full believability. Yeah, he was fast becoming my favorite character in the Snake Eyes movie.
Far and away, my favorite of the supporting cast has got to be Peter Mensa as the Blind Master. I mean, I know the bar was set perhaps a little bit low with RZA in Retaliation.
Right,
but
yes.
Peter Mensa was incredible. Such gravitas is the word, I suppose. But, I bought him, every line, every gesture, every appearance. He just had the look of someone who would be so proficient in the martial arts, he doesn't even need his sight. He sees your truth without seeing.
Right. Well, I mean, as cool as Blind Master was, I was on the side of the Hard Master. I'm Team Hard Master. I'm going to try and pronounce his name. Is it Iko Uwais? Look,
I've heard it pronounced Iko Uwais, but who's to say that's correct?
I don't know, but I do know that as the Hard Master, he definitely won me over if I had to side with either one of those two. I think that guy, he can hold his own.
Nice. One other note, I do love the fact that not a single drop of petroleum was burnt in the making of this production.
No, this was not a Michael Bay film.
The joke, if you haven't seen it yet, is there's a lot of use of electric bikes and electric cars.
And it sounds like it too.
Well, it is Tokyo of 2020 or 20X, whatever year this is supposed to be set in. I buy it. It just is a strange thing to see a ninja jump onto a motorcycle and not hear. Instead, it's like.
Yeah. It sounds like a puppy snoring.
It's a bit of a non sequitur, and it's going to take some getting used to, but hey, we're living in the future, baby. All right, shall we get into some spoilers?
Let's do it.
Listener, turn back now if you don't want to have some pretty major spoilers spilt on this show. For good or for ill, here we go. Zaz, you're going to have to keep me honest here. I'm going to try and do a plot summary as quickly as possible. Yeah, if I come off the rails, you'll save me, right?
Oh, well, let's see how good my memory is.
So we open with a scene set 20 years ago. A young boy and his father are pushing their broken down motorcycle. Hey!
Well, there goes.
No petroleum was burned.
None was used.
The bike was not functioning. They're pushing it through the woods. Ostensibly, they're on the run, and they're going to a safe house, a cabin, in the mountains somewhere. We get a sense of foreboding. It's clear that they're trying to get away from something. Turns out this is young Snake Eyes and his father, and a killer who's in the employ of Cobra has tracked Daddy down because Daddy is a GI Joe. One of the early members of GI Joe, probably recruited directly by Joe Colton. Anyways,
well, I'm gonna stop you there for a second.
Ooh.
At no point during this opening scene do we know that Cobra are on their tail, and we do not know that the father is a GI Joe at this point. So the only thing that we do know is through a small bit of dialogue, young Snake Eyes mishears what his father has said on the phone one night and asks pretty much what is a safe house. In a childish sort of way, asks if there is an actual safe at the cabin, to which his father just lies and says that's another word for cabin is safe house. So we know that they're going to a safe house. We don't know why. We don't know that there's any G.I. Joe or Cobra involvement at this point.
Thanks, man. I mean, that was perhaps a bit of clunky dialogue right up front. I did not like that one bit, but
yeah, that sent alarm bells for me when he said that he overheard his father say they were going to a safe house.
The child looked old enough to understand precisely what a safe house was. But anyways, back to the synopsis. So it turns out father is tracked down and tries to get Snake Eyes to hide. But of course, Snake Eyes sees the killers arrive, tries to intervene, fails, runs away, and, well, it is pretty evident that father gets gunned down. We hear the shot, we see the body, the cabin is burned.
We've missed one giant piece of information, is that he actually gets his code name from a scene just before the father dies. He's asked to roll a dice, and if he wins on the dice roll, then he lives. If he loses, then he dies, and he rolls Snake Eyes. Turns out later we find out that these dice are loaded, and they were always going to roll Snake Eyes.
So this particular Cobra agent,
whoever he is,
he's got like a bit of a Harvey Dent Two-Face approach to dealing out his vengeance or his brutal justice. What do you call it? Killing a person, yeah?
Right.
Yeah. It's all decided on the roll of a loaded dice. Anyways, we flash forward 20 years and turns out Snake Eyes is now some kind of pit fighter. And he's fighting Road Pig.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. When he picked up that hammer, I was like, this is a total Road Pig moment, to a lesser extent, Toll Booth. But he either decided that he was going to get his ass kicked and then come back and fight, or he loved the feeling of getting the utter beat out of him, because he did not start off like he knew what he was doing. He got, at one point, he should have had his skull cracked.
Totally.
When he went headfirst into a concrete pillar?
Yeah. And then getting stomped on, basically, by this very heavy-set dude. Look, this opening scene very quickly establishes, firstly, that he can take a huge beating. Because we know Snake Eyes just loves getting severely injured.
Would have been a great cameo for Logan, though.
It's very much the
It's
first
the
X-Men
introduction,
movie.
yes.
Yeah.
It is Wolverine's origin. Cage fight, pit fight. I mean, what are the stakes? Like, we don't even know what they're fighting for.
He just is the reigning champion. It comes out later after he wipes the mat with this bruiser that Snake Eyes has yet to lose a fight. And he's approached by what we think is a sort of high-ranking Yakuza member called Kenta and asked to join his cause. I suppose just as an enforcer. He's looking to recruit, and Snake Eyes is the man for the job. Kenta has some information that sweetens the pot and coerces Snake Eyes to join him. Kenta apparently has information on who Snake Eyes' father's killer is. So naturally, Snake Eyes follows the rabbit hole and is now an employee of the Japanese mob working in LA, gutting fish and inserting submachine guns into them.
Right, and just before that, he makes his first... I guess this is where we first meet Storm Shadow, Tommy. Because he's also there at this factory, fish gutting factory. And he calls... When he first sees Snake Eyes, he calls him Fish Boy? Is that right? Fish Boy, yeah. Right, he calls him Fish Boy. So their first interaction that we see is that he's given Snake Eyes the name Fish Boy, and that's their connection. And as Snake Eyes puts it, he needs to get fresher jokes because apparently he gets called that quite a bit. So that's our first introduction of the dynamic between Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes is the Fish Boy remark.
Of course, Kenta shows up and exposes the fact that Storm Shadow is a member of the Arashikage clan and is therefore a spy and wants him done away with because Kenta is a dishonored former member of the Arashikage. He and Storm Shadow, or Tommy, were both heirs to the leadership of the family, but there can be only one, and that one was going to be Tommy. So Kenta tried to kill Tommy.
Right.
Tommy decided...
Well, Tommy was given the responsibility of deciding his fate. Mm-hmm. And he decided...
to banish him.
Banish him out.
But, of course, Tommy regards this as a mistake because now Kenta's activities are no good. He's up to no good, so Tommy's on his trail. But, of course, Kenta's noticed this and wants to have him done away with, killed. Snake Eyes, however, refuses to play executioner and spares Tommy's life.
So we've missed a valuable piece of information here, where Tommy is instructed to go and I actually had a little bit of a problem with this scene. So as it was said, it later turns out that Tommy is related to the person who owns this operation. But for some reason, is just sitting around in the open as if he's working there, but is actually not actually seen working there. So he seems like he's actually he's higher up than just the gutters, at least, because it gives them, a flack for doing it. And then Tommy is asked personally to collect Snake Eyes to bring to the boss. Alarm bell's still not going off at this point. So he literally brings, at this point, nobody knows who's in trouble, but they know one of them is. And then they're brought before the boss, both Tommy and Snake Eyes. And it's at that point that we realise that Tommy's cousin, whether or not they were really cousins or they just grew up together and considered themselves cousins, not quite brothers, I'm not really sure. But at that point, it's then given to Snake Eyes to make the decision whether or not he's going to execute Storm Shadow for Kenta.
The Snake Eyes doesn't go through with it, and they fight their way out of this Yakuza enclave, and Tommy offers him a chance to come home with him, to join the Arashikage dojo, which requires him to pass 3 tests, the first of which being the Hardmaster, and a bowl of water that mustn't be spilt.
Right, yes. So he actually, the hard master, who he calls the hard-on master, Snake Eyes calls him the hard-on monster. The hard-on master. Hard-on monster is a completely different thing, kids. Don't Google it.
I like that.
So there's 3 trials. The first one is my favourite. So the hard master goes to a table and he does what they always do in these action films, is that he picks up, bladed weapons, and he picks up, blunt force weapons, and then turns around, gives Snake Eyes a bit of a look, picks up 2 bowls, and he fills them with water. And you're thinking to yourself, how are these bowls going to test Snake Eyes as far as this trial is concerned? But I mean, like I said, this is my favourite scene. I don't want to gush too much over it, so I'll let you.
Why? Because I'm impartial.
Yeah, you're impartial. Oh. Yeah.
No, we love the passion. So the task is simple: get Hardmaster's bowl without spilling a single drop of water. If you fail 4 times, you're out. And we're told that the consequence of failing these trials is death.
Right, yeah.
Why anyone would want to join this clan if chances are they would be killed without even entering the clan is beyond me. I guess it must just be that big of an honor. There are words that reverberate in Snake Eyes' mind that Tommy actually told him about. Set aside your ego. I forget what exactly they are, but he gets, after getting the tar kicked out of him and spilling his water 3 times, on the 4th attempt, he simply asks the Hardmaster for his bowl in exchange for Snake Eyes' own, and the Hardmaster acquiesces. So, when all's said and done, that was pretty easy. And actually just more of a riddle than a martial arts test.
Right, and I think that that's why he chose the bowls, is that he took one look at Snake Eyes and thought, this guy, he's got a lot of anger in him, he's got a vendetta perhaps, and I think that he fully expects him to fail again. But I don't think that there is a death sentence at the end of every trial. I think it's just the final one that is, you either pass it or you don't, and then if you don't, you die. I think the first 2 are probably just, you're out.
So at this point, Snake Eyes has the run of the place. He gets given a sword by Tommy called the Morning Light, which is a reference to current GI Joe comic book continuity, and also a series that I believe Larry Hama did, which focused on Storm Shadow. So the concept of the Morning Light is something that we have encountered before. It's not perhaps the part of the earliest bit of GI Joe continuity, but nice that Snake Eyes' sword has an origin, because it is a significant thing. Like we never really got much information on why Snake Eyes suddenly started carrying a sword in the comic books, other than the fact that there was a new toy out and that toy came with a sword. The significance of that sword exactly was always a mystery. Here we get that mystery. But almost immediately after that, we learn that, in fact, Snake Eyes is a double agent.
Yeah, so he grabs one of those motorbikes. E-bikes, right. and he takes off. I feel like he's probably got too much free rein. Anyway, he takes off on his bike, and you're wondering what he's up to. Because at this point you think that he's all in as far as his training is concerned. But yeah, he gets to one of those E-Honda style bathhouses. Just nothing but steam and sweat. And then out through the steam steps no other than our boy, what's his name again?
Kenta.
That's it.
In a loincloth.
Done. Yeah.
No.
And he steps out, and then it turns out that the whole scenario was to get Snake Eyes into the temple, into the castle. They call it a castle, don't they?
Well, it's like a castle. The security at the Arashikage compound, while it looks ancient, or while the buildings look ancient, the security is ultra high-tech, modern. There's some great establishing shots that show off the beams on the rooftops, the surveillance. So yes, Snake Eyes is given free rein, but he's constantly under observation.
Until he isn't. Until he isn't. But yeah, so it turns out he's working for the baddies.
Yeah.
He was supposed to infiltrate them.
He was supposed to spare Tommy's life.
Right.
And use that as a bargaining chip to win Tommy's favor and be taken in. So this is all according to plan. Turns out Kenta is after a stone called something of the sun. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's something to do with the sun. The piece of the sun, the tears of the sun, the heat of the sun, the shard of the sun.
The Mind Stone?
Okay, this is where things come off the rails ever so slightly. The Arashikage have a MacGuffin. That's all it needs to be. And this is something that Kenta wants. It has the properties of, I don't know, some kind of energy weapon, really. It can
And it seems like it goes off of mental control.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it looks like at first that it takes quite a lot of mental focus, yeah, until it doesn't. But, you know, it definitely isn't something that you just point and shoot.
Yeah. So it's an ancient energy weapon stone. It almost doesn't matter. What is very interesting to me at this point is we've got Snake Eyes, our titular character, who is a turncoat. His allegiance has always been with Kenta's. He's infiltrated the Arashikage dojo under false pretenses and this orchestrated trust game with Storm Shadow, with Tommy. And it's all just been a ruse to get this artifact. And he's like, you need to hurry up, Kenta, because if I fail these trials, I'm dead. And Kenta's like, well, if you don't do this for me, you don't get your father's killer. So the choice is yours. Begrudgingly, Snake Eyes agrees to continue.
He does attempt to get the stone before the next trial, I believe, but he must have certain elements to allow him to get through to the stone, one of which is he needs to know where it is. And second of all, he needs, is it blood specifically, or is it just DNA?
It's unclear. I mean, it becomes blood at a later point. It's quite evident that it's a sort of a scanner that actually requires a bit of blood. But yes, Tommy spills the beans that the access to the stone is DNA. It's in his DNA. It's in the head of the Arashikage Dojo's DNA, who incidentally is their granny. Tommy's grandmother. She's the head of the Arashikage and not the Hardmaster. Whoa, spoiler. So yes, that tidbit of information comes back a little bit later to play some vital importance. But it seems like there's been a tip-off that Kenta is back in Japan because Tommy and Akiko, head of security in the Arashikage dojo, go off in search of him. And Snake Eyes comes along. I guess he wants to see if he can intervene and still keep up his appearances.
So I'm not sure if Akiko is a character from GI Joe previously, but if not, I feel like this was a moment where Jinx would have been a perfect opportunity. It's
strange to me that they didn't go with Jinx. There has got to be a good reason for that, because Akiko was not, as everyone... Well, as a lot of commentators suspected, a disposable character that would die before credits rolled. She lived, surprisingly. This film was full of surprises.
Yeah.
But by virtue of her living, it makes me wonder, why couldn't she be Jinx?
Mm-hmm.
I guess Jinx should be a more junior character, and Akiko...
Unless Akiko becomes Jinx later on with a slight name change?
Could be.
Possibly.
Anyways, it seems Tommy and Akiko and Snake Eyes in tow managed to find Kento without too much difficulty. And they have a battle that rages in these tight, neon-lit Tokyo back alleys. Fantastic. The scene is set with an establisher. A man walks down the alleyway in the rain. And eagle-eye viewers would know that man... quite immediately. It's none other than Mr. Larry Hama.
To which we gave enthusiastic claps to the best of our abilities given the surrounding. But
it's his Stan Lee moment.
Yeah.
They finally didn't rob him of it. I almost wished it was more than just a token walk by. like, the man can speak. Give him a line. Give him something. Give him a moment. I don't know. It felt a little bit token because he was just on his own with no actual business, just walking past the camera to kind of give a wink to the audience, like, yeah, I'm Larry Hama.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought that it wasn't overdone. My suggestion was if you want to give him some impact to make him the father of Snake Eyes. But that would have, as mentioned, when I mentioned it, it was like, well, that takes a lot of passionate acting. You got to sell it. The age may have been a factor to make it unbelievable.
I thought Snake Eyes' father was particularly convincing, so...
Well, yeah, I don't want to subtract a role from someone who did a good job, but, I mean, other than that, what can you do? I mean, Stan Lee's cameos were deliberately tongue-in-cheek, wink to the camera, one-liners that only he could deliver. Well, I'm not sure what Larry Hama could have done that would have been anything better than him walking through the streets with a umbrella.
Maybe that's all it needed to be. Anyways, the inevitable battle ensues with some interesting instances where Snake Eyes needs to kind of skirt the action in order to not, firstly, give away his true allegiance and give the game away to Tommy and Akiko, but also to not kill Kenta's operatives indiscriminately. So there was an interesting balancing game being done there.
I don't know how believable that was, because he brings down a tower which basically just cuts off
Akiko.
Yeah, and that's it. Storm Shadow, if he wasn't otherwise incapacitated, could have continued that fight. It didn't really necessarily break up a fight. It just stopped one person from getting to the other. And definitely didn't stop Snake Eyes from jumping over there either if he wanted it to be believable that he was on one side. But it did its job, I guess, as far as the script called for it. And
it's at this point that we discover what Kent is up to in Tokyo.
Right.
Ever being the arms dealer, he's now allied himself with Cobra Command. As evidenced by the fact that all the weapons crates that he had been smuggling bear the Cobra sigil.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking about that now, that's perhaps a little bit too obvious.
It definitely is. I mean, it's on the inside of the crate at least. So, if you're going to put your symbol somewhere, at least put it on the inside of the crate. But I don't know. Like, it's one of those moments that is definitely for the audience, because as the audience member, I looked at it and I was like, Cobra. And it was like, it was like a little flame of excitement just went up ever so briefly. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I think at that point my tongue was firmly in my cheek enough to enjoy it for what it was.
Yep. And with Cobra now in the mix, the Arashikage, Tommy decides it's time to call in GI Joe.
Right.
Clearly this speaks to some earlier affiliation between the Arashikage and GI Joe. It seems like
they never actually mention G.I. Joe. They always refer to it as the Joes.
The Joes. Very good. Okay. I mean, we have no idea what the origin of the term Joe is at this point. I know in Rise of Cobra, they played it off as a big old acronym. Joint Operations Entity.
Well, okay.
Global Initiative Joint Operations Entity, if memory serves. But anyways, we don't get the explanation this time. We just hear that it's time to call in the Joes.
And they're the good guys.
And they seem to be represented by one individual. Like, G.I. Joe saw fit to only send one woman. Scarlet. Major O'Hara.
Well, so they actually contact Scarlet directly. And as it turns out, Scarlet was already on her way there because she's following in on the trail of the Baroness. So that sort of aligns itself. So she's already... her first interaction, I believe, is at the airport. Mm-hmm. Where she then
jumped.
She gets jumped in the bathroom by 3 large goons, and at this point,
who I think actually have Cobra lapel pins.
They do, yes.
I mean, it's a small detail, and I can only imagine there's a Cobra symbol on them because they never actually showed in close up. That would perhaps maybe they had a few close ups of it, and they decided to leave that on the cutting room floor because that's naff. But we could see these studs on their lapels, and I always assume that whenever you've got a detail like that, it can't be for nothing.
Right. We're not sure. I don't think it's Cobra. Cobra isn't exactly a well-known organization to
To the world.
To the world at this point. No.
Maybe. I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, perhaps it's similar to the Yakuza. Like, everyone has an awareness that this thing exists, but no one knows the members. They kind of walk amongst us.
Right. Yeah, I mean, possibly. So the scene plays out where she's in the middle of a video call with Tommy, and then the fight ensues in the bathroom, and to me it felt like a Black Widow moment. It felt like early Black Widow.
The fight choreography did not reflect how a rather lithe woman can take down 4, maybe even more, like, heavy-set men. Like, Scarlett needed perhaps some more serious, like, almost balletic athleticism,
Right,
to get the jump on those guys, but she was just beating them with clubs.
She didn't break a sweat. She wasn't deep of breath.
At one point, a guy's going for his silenced pistol on the ground, and she steps on his fingers.
Yeah.
And I think I laughed at that point and joked with you that, like, a woman as light as that stepping on my fingers, I kind of would not let out that kind of scream.
No, it'll be an annoyed grunt more than anything.
This guy was, yeah.
It definitely couldn't stop you from grabbing your gun.
Yeah, just throw her off and gun her down. But anyways, suspend your disbelief that Major O'Hara is a serious badass and had these guys licked. Yes, Scarlett was a corporal initially in GI Joe. They've upped her rank, which is something that I thought probably should have always been the case. Like, Scarlett was always part of GI Joe's, like, top cadre. She was always in the intelligence gathering, like, cabal of GI Joe. So for her to have to salute Shipwreck seems absurd to me. But hey, it's the Joes. They do their own thing. I don't know. Something also about Samara Weaving's casting that irked me slightly, and this isn't a fault on the actress. It's the fact that you've cast someone who is very easy on the eye, great, but quite a young woman.
Yes.
And for Scarlett to be as distinguished as she is, I would want someone in their early to mid-30s. She doesn't strike me as that age at all. Mid-20s at the max.
Yeah, she just doesn't pull off the look of someone that's seen battle, that's seen war. And even though mostly she's into it for the intelligence side of things, it's still, I don't know, she needs to have more mileage on her.
A little bit more weathered.
More weathered, yeah.
Like I say, easy on the eye, and she certainly looks great. Both in mufti and in her uniform later on. Damn it, man. All of a sudden I wish they were 4-inch action figures for this line.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that they don't. But I guess, I didn't hate Scarlett. I didn't hate her character, but that was the one moment where I felt like they were shoehorning in something to connect it to the next one. There was one moment where she turns up at the castle, without getting too far ahead of myself, she turns up at the castle and says, "Oh, the party started without me." Or something to that effect. I'm like, really? And a one-liner? Who are you saying this to? Oh, jeez. It felt like another Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow moment with the unnecessary one-liners. Anyway, back to it. So they caught on to the fact that Scarlett is already on her way, which is why I guess they only have one Joe to come and give them a hand, because she was already going to be there anyway for the Baroness.
Though there's a point later where she gets heli dropped at the Arashikage.
Is that the only time we see a helicopter?
Compound.
I think it is.
We don't see a helicopter.
Well,
This is how neat and tidy the budget must have been on this film, because they didn't have to...
We hear a helicopter and we see a rope.
Yeah. which is bizarre to me, because, who flew the helicopter?
Yeah, who's dropping her in?
Is there no other infrastructure that can be brought to bear? There are some holes in logic that, like, if Cobra wanted the shard, this MacGuffin, surely they could have taken it by force of arms. And this has always been an ongoing concern, that the Arashikage Dojo's greatest asset was always secrecy, and once you know where it is, you can, by force of arms, just take it. But anyways, I'm enjoying the fact that the scale of this is still quite small. We now have a scene where Snake Eyes confronts Kento again, saying, what is Cobra? And this alters the deal. I never said anything about joining terrorist group and doing this for Cobra, which is odd because, I mean, you know, you're going to get in bed with the Yakuza, who are, they're a criminal gang. Cobra's just perhaps one step up from that. Anyways, Baroness makes her appearance. Ursula Cabrera, magnificent.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people saying that she wouldn't be able to carry the role. She didn't have the look, but I think once she stepped out, I believed it.
She's got the look. She's got the voice. She's feisty. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, if your point of reference is Sienna Miller, who I never bought as Baroness, she never seemed villainous enough. And, you know, as it turned out, she wasn't. She was literally just
brainwashed,
working under brainwashing. Yeah, no, that's weak sauce. Like, Ursula's performance is evil.
Yep.
She's wicked. There are some moments later on that undermine that.
Until they don't.
Being coy, are we? Anyways, turns out Baroness ups the ante. She's got live footage of Snake Eyes' father's killer. She's got him in her custody. And she's like, if you steal the MacGuffin for us, you can have him. If not, we're going to let him go. So that is the final straw, and Snake Eyes undertakes this dastardly mission. Of course, he also has to pass 2 more trials.
That's right. I was wondering if you were going to skip over those. Going back to that. So the second trial, I think the second trial was probably the worst of the 3 for me. It basically had Snake Eyes and the Blind Master out in the forest, and the Blind Master produces this glowing orb. And now, for me, this was the first moment that I didn't believe what I was seeing. I'd seen some fantastical martial arts. I'd seen some great action. I'd seen some wall scaling. And, you know, part of a martial arts movie is that it doesn't always have to be believable. But this one particularly made me feel a little disconnected. So the orb, he follows it down a path to where it comes to a tree that is surrounded by these orbs. What is that orb? Doesn't matter. The orb wasn't a thing in the end anyway. Then there's this bright light further past that tree. So he follows that light. Snake Eyes follows the light and comes face to face with the burning... Well, he's back in time, essentially. And he's looking at the burning house that his father had just previously died in. And he comes face to face with the killer, steps out to confront the killer, and is shot. And then that happens a couple more times in very quick succession, where he stands up, gets shot, stands up, gets shot, and then he stops for a second and is like, admits to himself that, there was nothing that he could have done. And he says out into the wind that he's sorry. And then his father appears before him and says, "You were just a child, it wasn't your fault." And then...
Now this broke the movie for you.
Yeah.
Momentarily.
Well, yeah, I just feel like during that moment, he sees his father, he makes peace with his father spiritually, and then I think you see his father then from a distance ascending some stairs, and then into the darkness, and then he's gone. Was that his father walking up those stairs?
Yes.
Right. So the problem I had with that scene, and then after that he sort of wakes up in front of the Blind Master, and for me I was like, how did that happen? How did that happen? How did that even happen? If they were sitting around sipping, like peyote or something, and it was like a mind, within his mind, something that was a chemical reaction that allowed him to have a spiritual connection, I would have believed that more than him just walking blindly into the forest to have a spiritual journey.
Look, I don't think that this was literally happening in any way, shape, or form. And I don't think either that the hard master or the blind master needed to administer some kind of hallucinogenic to get Snake Eyes to reveal his dark past. There are a few seeds planted earlier that the blind master can see your soul, that he has some kind of mystical powers.
He has sight beyond sight.
Well, whatever. Eyes of the hawk. Hawk. But what I took that moment to be was the second the blind master opened his palm and this kind of magical orb lifted out of it was a kind of post-hypnotic suggestion being placed upon Snake Eyes. Like, they spoke about the Arashikage mindset. They never demonstrated how it is administered, but that was another little nugget placed early on in the script, that these are powers that the blind master has. That's how he perceives the world. He sees into you, and so like this wasn't happening literally in any sense. This was hypnosis. This is the Arashikage mindset, a trance-like state.
Well, if he was able to put Snake Eyes in a hypnosis or trance-like state without anything else other than his willpower, then I definitely wasn't picking up on that.
Well, it's Peter Mentz's delicious vocal tones kind of hypnotized me as well.
Maybe that's what it was.
Anyways, that was the second trial, perhaps the least egregious, or the second least egregious of the three, because the third trial, holy hell, my friends, if the film wasn't broken by this point, for a lot of us, this moment would have broken it. And to my great regret, I also kind of was like, oh, jeez, really? But then I went with it, and there was a very specific moment where it won me over. Mm-hmm. Can you guess?
Well, I've got one too, for that moment where I went from hating it to loving it.
Set the scene, Zaz.
So, essentially, he's brought to a hole in the ground. Out in the woods, there's a big hole in the ground, and he's told that he needs to descend into this hole and press a tile, and the tile has the symbol of the Arashikage. And then when he does that, am I saying that right?
Very good.
Perfect. So when he does that, he's told that he needs to push the tile, and when he does, his fate will be revealed.
I used to say Arshikage.
Okay.
Well, Arshikage.
Arshikage. Well, if you've only ever read it, you make up your own.
There you go. And Larry Hama himself is quoted as saying, don't criticize someone's pronunciation because it means that they learnt through reading.
That's right.
Any hooch. Snake Eyes presses the tile and it releases...
at first it releases one spectacular anaconda. If you've ever seen the movie Anaconda, this anaconda's got that one beat. This one is one gigantic anaconda. And what beats one gigantic anaconda? It's 3 giant anacondas. Now, from what I could tell, there was a black one, an albino one, and one that kind of just looked like a regular anaconda.
And the words of wisdom Akiko administers while Snake Eyes, or just before Snake Eyes is about to descend into this fate, is something along the lines of like, you need to set aside your hate or your vengeance. I don't know. Am I misremembering?
Well, yeah, it's hard to remember exactly what because they all sort of sound the same. Like I almost want to say that the ego line was in there too.
Yeah.
Put aside your ego, but that was also in the other one. But I do know that the snakes basically they look in you and they see if you have ulterior motives. Basically, if you're not pure of heart, they're going to tell. And I don't know. For some reason, I thought that each snake was going to be a different savior. If you were pure of heart, I thought the white one was going to, ascend it back out of the hole.
Oh, okay.
But depending on which snake was taking a liking to you, would depend on where you sat.
To be honest, that would be a little bit too twee.
Well,
if the
possibly.
Snake actually, instead of like wolfing you down, as a hungry, gigantic anaconda would do. Do
you think snake in a hole is a little bit too on the nose? There's an anaconda in this hole.
Anyways, I'm glad he wasn't hoisted out by the white snake.
Well, I'm glad he wasn't either. But so at that point, for me, it got, at this point, it was like pretty fantastical. All right, and I had a decision to make. It was like either I was going to accept that there were 3 giant anacondas in this pit that just lived in this pit for some reason, and I'd already sort of poo-pooed all over the second trial, so I was like, all right, giant pythons. But then something hit me. I had a flashback from back when I was younger, and I used to just casually watch on, I think it used to be on the SBS channel, where you would get just random ninja or Japanese fighting, or even the Japanese ghost story, and I could not pinpoint one old Japanese movie that didn't have some sort of fantastical element in it. And if I was going to sit there and watch a very heavy Japanese themed GI Joe movie and neglect what had come before,
The dragon.
well, yeah, yeah.
It was Iron Fist. You know, go into the cave of what's his name? Shao Lao, the Undying.
Right.
Plunge your hands into the cauldron, steal his heart.
So it was so you've got that superhero element to it. So that's where you decided you were going to be good on this scene? Is that you put a connection to Iron Fist?
No.
Right, so that wasn't my thing either.
Oh, go ahead.
So it was basically I could not come up in my own mind where I'd ever watched a Japanese movie, whether it just be straight up fighting, that didn't at least have some sort of mystical element to it. So I was like, you know what? This is okay.
I need to remind you that there are 3 mystical elements at play right now. The stone, Peter Mensa, the Blind Master's hallucinogenics, and now the giant anacondas.
Well, that's what I mean, though, because I'd already sort of the orb thing lost me. The flashback scene lost me, particularly because I thought that the first trial was so grounded and yet so impactful that the second one lost me. And then by the time the third one came out, I could have easily just been given up on the movie at that point. Mm-hmm. But I decided to look at it. I spun it around, and I was like, okay, this is a G.I. Joe movie. Sure, this is a Snake Eyes movie. But this is also a Japanese fighting movie.
Yeah.
And they have those elements. And if I'm going to enjoy this for what that is, then I need to accept that those elements are there. And so I got off my high horse. I sat back down in my cinema seat, and I enjoyed the scene. Until I didn't.
When was that?
When he basically fails in that trial, right? He is going to be consumed by this snake. And then, what's her name again?
Akiko.
Akiko comes down and saves the day. Now, these two had been sparring all this time. They definitely didn't seem like they had each other's backs. There was nothing to show that these two had a connection at all. And then she's risking who she herself said was her family, that she'd never had before, to go down, swing down, and save Snake Eyes from the trial that he was meant to either survive or perish in. One that she has survived herself. Mm-hmm. So, she gave up, almost gave up everything that she'd ever believed in for one stranger who she had been telling everybody else was not to be trusted. And that just seemed like a little bit too much.
I think you engaged with that scene a lot more intellectually than I did.
I was like,
oh, this is stupid. Giant snakes, come on. And then when I got locked back in by the most awesome jump scare I've gotten in a long time.
Both jumped. I did not, I don't know, like, yeah, okay. That jump scare.
Because Snake Eyes, he's channeling himself, he's calming himself, he's setting aside his thirst for vengeance, or trying to. And the snakes are subsiding, they're kind of retreating, they're like, you passed the test. But all of a sudden, this bastard comes at you, like right literally comes screen, at the audience. I'm grateful that this isn't a 3D production. I'm so happy that bullshit has had its day.
If my popcorn box was full, I would have lost it. It was,
And all of a sudden, Snake Eyes is having to fight 3 giant anacondas, and I'm like, shit, yeah, I'm on board with this. This is fun. And then, as you say, Akiko saves the day. She kind of had to. Like, you cannot defeat those snakes. Certainly not unarmed. Snake Eyes went in there with nothing but himself. So it was like, it was the Empire Strikes Back failure in the cave, man. Like, Akiko had to intervene, otherwise this man would die. So, I guess you're always telling new recruits that the consequence of failure of the trials is death, but like the Arashikage aren't that bloodthirsty. Like in that moment, Akiko knew that she could save this man's life, and she chose to, even if it meant him washing out of the Arashikage and being sent packing. So that ultimately happens. He's sent on his way because he still holds this quest for vengeance in his heart.
Did you think he was going to fail the third test?
No.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna pass it, and then he was going to be a fully fledged member.
Zing! So he's actually given his marching orders. He's sent packing. He even hands in the morning light to Tommy, and Tommy says, "Keep it." At which point, Snake Eyes, for some reason,
I think because Tommy thought of him as his brother, and he had a life debt, he did something that would have solidified both those things. Is that he offered his own... He cut himself with his blade and offered his open palm to Tommy to reach out to, as to say, if we can't be brothers here, we could be blood brothers.
Yeah, and I owe you my life, and this is a blood debt.
Correct.
So you, Tommy, are released of your life debt to me for saving your life against Kenta in the start of the film. And this is me, I suppose, pledging myself to you, even though I can't be in the Arashikage. But of course, this is a very surreptitious way for Snake Eyes to get Tommy's blood.
Mm-hmm. So Tommy also cuts himself on the blade, on Snake Eyes' sword, and then,
haha, I gotcha. I mean, that is a moment that like, I think the audience feels some level of reward. It's like, wow, Snake Eyes is really duplicitous.
Snake Eyes also has a hanky.
Yeah, he wipes down the blade that now has both his blood and Tommy's blood with this very convenient hanky.
Yeah.
Look, it was all premeditated, so yeah, that's how you hand wave the convenience of the hanky, but like, yeah, it was a bit of an odd moment for Snake Eyes to produce this rag.
And it wasn't just like a white handkerchief, it had designs on it.
Oh man. Yeah, no, that would have been really funny if it's like toilet roll that has like little puppies and like cherubic babies, cupids. Yeah, man.
I would have believed that more. Like he went to go get something quickly.
Anyways, later at night, Snake Eyes sneaks in, uses the blood, steals the stone.
Now, I just want to point out something here before we do. Snake Eyes is able to out ninja the ninjas on several occasions.
He's seen all their tricks at that point,
but they are still fully trained ninjas. But now you see Storm Shadow go in, and you see him operate it, like how you get to this gem. He pushes an eye of the dragon, out comes out this panel, and then I guess he must prick his own finger and push it against the panel because he puts blood on it. And there's no needle on the panel, it's just like a glass panel that picks up his DNA. And the only 4 people that could do it, like you said, were the grandmother, Tommy, the hard master, and the blind master. So... they show how it opens, and then he goes, all right, it's in there and it's safe. I don't think that Snake Eyes was able to see all of that, because when he does get in there, he sort of like fumbles around to try and figure it out for a second. And then, quite easily just slaps a blood-soaked hanky onto the glass panel, and that's enough to open it.
Has a little throwdown with Akiko and quite handily defeats her this time. There is a lot of male-on-female violence, if I do say so myself. This film is not afraid of male characters putting the smackdown on their female counterparts.
But there are at least 2 nut shots.
and 1 pussy shot.
There's that one too.
Baroness gets it square in the baby factory. Doesn't she? Yeah, I think Scarlet administers that one. Oh no! Oh jeez.
I don't think they tussle. I don't think Scarlet and
Oh, Kenta. Kenta's the one who gets Baroness right in the badge.
That's a rewatch.
Damn.
We'll check that out on the rewatch.
Yep, worth the price.
If you've seen it,
second
can you
admission.
hit us with the timestamp for when that happened.
Anywho, Snake Eyes delivers this MacGuffin to Kento and Baroness. Kento handily demonstrates its power by incinerating one of his own guys. Mm-hmm. Great. He's already proficient with it. But then again, I suppose he's ex-Arashikage. I guess it's in the training manual how to use the tear of the sun or whatever.
Whatever it's called. But they are told never to use it. They're only to protect it. Mm-hmm. So he obviously has gone against... He's already been outcast anyway, so he's going to... It looks like when he first uses it that it takes a lot of mental power to do it. And it's not like a laser beam comes out of it or anything. It's literally just... I guess whatever he's focusing on feels the effects of that gem.
And you know what? I'm in favor, because if it meant there was less computer-generated imagery in this film, and that it was more practical and in-camera, great.
It also
actual pyrotechnics, fantastic.
It had properties to it that seemed to suit the story at times, because at one point it's a force field if you're holding it. And it also...
Look, the less that's said about the MacGuffin, the better.
It's a MacGuffin!
Yeah, exactly.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's the thing that is of vital importance to everyone but the audience. Anyways, in trade for Snake Eyes' loyalty, he is not double-crossed. I was fully expecting them to say, okay, well done, my servant. Now you get your reward. Bang, bang, bang. No, instead...
Wait a minute. Just hold up one sec before you make this reveal. This is where I came back to the second trial, right? So he walks into this, it's a shanty, but it looks all right. He walks in there and there's an individual with a mask over his face, like a sack over his face. You don't know who it is. And I was thinking to myself, what if he's still in that second trial? What if he pulls off this mask and it's the reveal like an Empire Strikes Back, where it's him looking at himself? And then he's out of the second trial, and it's like, you failed. Like, he did all of that in the trial. I'm glad it wasn't that. I'm honestly super bloody stoked that it wasn't that, because that would have been awful. But I had a moment there where I was like, oh god, that's him sitting in that chair. But it wasn't Snake Eyes sitting in that chair in some sort of mental Yoda-esque Dagobah dream state.
Dream state, yeah.
It was...
The killer! The bad guys kept their word. They offered up the killer of Snake Eyes' father on a plate and left him alone with Snake Eyes to do with what he will. Take his life, torture him, anything really. The bad guys scram and Snake Eyes is left alone. And as is the hero's journey, he opts not to take vengeance.
You think he's gonna?
Spares this guy's life. Because it turns out this guy is actually, he was, employed by Cobra to kill Snake Eyes' father. So I guess, at the end of the day, it's a bit of a hollow murder. I mean, ultimately it's the Cobra overlords that ordered this killer to kill Snake Eyes' father. So what would killing the middleman ultimately achieve, if not just simple vengeance?
So, very early on, we skipped over it a little bit, but when Snake Eyes refuses to kill Tommy, he's asked why, and he says, I'm not a killer. Which I guess also is in reference to why he doesn't kill this killer. It's because he doesn't want to be a killer. But there are several moments in this movie where he literally kills people. It's like a Batman moment where Batman's like, I don't kill people. And then he literally does. So there's a little bit of that into it. But they also, between Tommy and Snake Eyes, say to each other that when they looked into each other's eyes, they saw honor. I think was the word they used, honor.
Rings a bell.
Yeah. Anyway, so he doesn't kill him, even though, he's already probably killed a few people by this stage.
In fact, not only does he not kill him, but he lets him go.
Cuts his chains. He could have just walked out.
With impunity. Yeah. But I think at that point, Snake Eyes had realized the enormity of his mistake. That he gave this weapon to the very people that arranged the hit on his father. So now his course is clear. He needs to right this wrong. So he's being chased by Kiko and Storm Shadow, who are obviously after him for the stone. And he's also being shadowed by Cobra. I assume it's Cobra and not the Yakuza at that point.
I do. Well, it's hard to really tell, but I believe at this point...
Bad guys in SUVs and bikes.
I believe they're a bit of both at this point, because they've teamed up.
So, once Tommy and Akiko have Snake Eyes firmly in their sights, and this happens on a motorway on bikes, they ride up to him and try and kill him. Snake Eyes avoids their sword slashes and instead tries to take out the baddies that are tailing them. And then we have a very, in my opinion, unnecessary overdub. This is something that was clearly added in post, where Kiko in voiceover says, he's trying to protect us from the others. Like, he's not trying to kill us.
Yeah.
He's trying to kill the people.
Like, did you see that?
He's on our side. Yeah. It's like, that was unnecessarily trying to clarify it for the audience, I think. We didn't need to have it painted quite so.
No,
vividly.
I guess that was the moment where they were trying to justify why they would go back and help him too. Like, so they're telling us that they've recognized that that's what he's doing.
How do you rate the combats on the car carrier? This was in a lot of the trailers. It's a great sequence in my opinion. But Zays, you want to take a crack at it?
So, I thought it was. How do I put it? It was action heavy. And it was almost so you've got a car carrier loaded with sports cars, and I made a comment that it was great for the driver to continue driving while all of this mayhem is happening.
To which I responded, "What, you expect him to pull over when there are guys clambering all over his truck with machine guns and swords?"
Oh yeah, that's a good point though. That is a solid point. So you got Snake Eyes up there, literally killing people at this point. Now he's saved a life, but now he's killing all these other agents, whether they're Cobra or Yakuza. They probably are Yakuza. I don't think they were. I don't think Baroness had any Cobra backup with her, which was silly. But so they're up there, and they're sort of I thought it was a really smooth transition when the Yakuza came out of their vehicles that were matching the speed to the truck and just sort of stepped out onto it. I was like, yep, okay, they know what they're doing.
This is all happening on a soundstage.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, clearly. But I thought it was at least, if they jumped out and it was a bit clunky, you'd be like, yeah, maybe more believable. But still, I liked it. But then, Snake Eyes not only has to worry about the Yakuza, he's also has to worry about Storm Shadow, who, no matter the fact that, he's trying to help him now, he still wants to kill this guy. And I think he's got good reason to at this point. Storm Shadow has more than enough reason to take this guy down. He's now, Storm Shadow has shown previously that he has a bit of a temper. So there are at least 2 occasions where he sort of yells at the air and gets a bit frustrated. So you can see that this is one of those moments where he's got that look in his eyes where he is the shadow before the storm. Is what Akiko, thank you. I keep forgetting Akiko. Akiko mentions
not
that.
Jinx.
No, not Jinx. So at this point, they've dispatched all of the goons on the truck. They make an uneasy alliance, not the first one that we're going to see, but they make an uneasy alliance and do what all good action movies do. And they, I think do they reverse it or do they just drive off? They get in a vehicle and they drive off.
I think they reverse it off the back of the car carrier, off the top level, I think.
Right, yeah.
And guess what? It's another electronic car.
Yes, so painfully obvious.
Electric car, I should say. Electronic car. Jeez.
There's one scene where the electric motorcycle hits an electric car, and yet it all still goes up in flames.
It's because it's loaded with pyro, bro.
Gotta be.
Yeah. Those guys always overpack the explosive charge. So Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow join forces to save the Arashikage dojo, which is already under attack by Kento's forces, and it's indeterminate number of Cobra operatives. Like, there's very evidently, Cobra guys, which Scarlet dispatches on the outskirts of the dojo. But I think all the guys inside are Yakuza, if I'm not mistaken. It's unclear.
Right, and then it gets to the point where the fight is basically won at this point, and the Baroness says, "Right, you have what you wanted. I'll take the stone."
And Kenta's like, "I don't think so." Bang, crotch shot.
Yeah, and why he picks and chooses who he's going to zap and who he isn't going to zap, I won't understand. This was a perfect opportunity to go, you know what? I don't need you. Mind meld this gem and disintegrate the Baroness. But he picks and chooses his moments, to his detriment sometimes.
Yeah, look, it seemed to me like Baroness, while not a serious physical threat to Kenta in the scenes that they share, was the threat of like Cobra. Like, if you harm me, Cobra comes down on you hard. Like, the big bad is Cobra. You don't stand a chance, little fish. But in this scene, he kind of disregards that and backstabs her, which I guess we knew was coming.
Oh yeah, I was not surprised.
But then what happens next is unexpected, because Baroness and Scarlet join forces to take down Kenta.
And that was Scarlet's idea.
And Baroness goes along with it. Mutual survival, I guess, was at stake there. But I don't know, take it or leave it. That might strain one's believability a little bit, because it was very cozy, and Baroness, instead of kind of seizing any kind of advantage from this, just decides to kind of disappear.
Yeah, she has a fuck this moment and just goes, it's not worth it. But up until that point, she had many opportunities to shoot Scarlet in the back and doesn't. And I don't think that had she shot Scarlet in the back, I don't think that would have altered her position amongst the group one bit. I think that because the group ends up being Snake Eyes, who make it there with Storm Shadow, and
Akiko, Granny, Hardmaster, Blindmaster, Baroness, Scarlet. And as you say, Baroness could have easily dispatched Scarlet at some point, and no one would be the wiser. But it would appear that the plot armor was incredibly thick between those two, because there's a point where they're both unloading full auto at each other and just nothing.
Yeah,
this is where the fight choreography was at its weakest.
They were shooting bullets at each other at such a close range, and nothing was hitting anything. There
was some weak ass gun fu happening. I think Samara Weaving at one point, sort of just basically kicks a bamboo structure and kind of just bounces off it, which counts as an adequate dodge maneuver.
Yeah, that was a bit much for me. I mean, but at this point, I had already seen 3 giant anacondas. So I'm like, okay, cool. We can dodge bullets at this range.
Gun fu, be damned. But at the end of the day, after seeing some interesting martial arts displays, particularly from Granny with her fans. I've never seen fans being used other than with Mortal Kombat. What's the name of the character? Forget about it. Mortal Kombat character who uses fans.
The fans.
Yeah. Anyways, so Granny uses fans to dispatch some guys and has a fight sequence with Kenta that goes kind of her way. Ultimately, they defeat the big bad. And he disappears. He gets away.
Not before Storm Shadow pretty much... he gets the gem through... They use fireworks to get cut through the force field that this gem produces, which makes him drop the gem. Storm Shadow picks it up, and now we don't know this at the time. I know it said that they're supposed to defend it, but it never says anywhere, from my memory, that you can't use it until after he uses it. Am I wrong in that, do you think? I don't remember.
There might have been a line at some point that the Orochi are guardians of this artifact, but they cannot use its destructive power. I think that's something that maybe Tommy
we don't even know. We don't even know that it's a weapon, though, do we? Up until the point that he uses it as one. It's just supposed to be an artifact that is the imagery of their power or their honor or whatever.
But it quite literally is a weapon.
Literally is a weapon. So, yeah, and anyone can use it so long as they're holding it. But for some reason I thought that it was going to consume him and he was going to burn himself up. But there's a point where instead of disintegrating the grandma, he uses it as like a parlor trick and starts making fire come up left and right and behind to trap her.
Oh, this is Kenta, yeah.
Yeah. And then eventually when Storm Shadow gets it, he uses it to try and disintegrate the Kento? Kenta, yeah. Tries to disintegrate him, misses... somehow, misses an opportunity to destroy someone with an object that doesn't produce any sort of projectile, but still somehow misses. And then when they go to look for him, they're like, he's run away. It's like, how do you know he's run away? How do you not just assume that he's been disintegrated?
Yeah.
But he does get away. And on his tail is...
Snake Eyes. Yep. They find their way in front of the pit, the Anaconda pit. And surely Kenta knows exactly what's down there. But Snake Eyes and him have a face-off in which Snake Eyes is defeated, ostensibly, and actually gets stabbed quite meatily in the shoulder. Like, the blade goes in. But using some sleight of hand, he's attached a chain to Kenta's foot and uses it to drag him into the snake pit. And the snakes consume him. And Snake Eyes...
Well, hang on. He's decapitated one of the snakes.
Yes.
So there's only 2 snakes that remain. One of those snakes, after he's decapitated one of them, swallows him almost whole.
Snake Eyes is attached to Kenta's body with this chain and gets dragged into it. And this is where something interesting happens, which confirms Snake Eyes' arc, really. Very, very visibly. The snakes subside. They leave him be. He closes his eyes. And look, if for nothing else, this just serves the purpose to illustrate the point that Snake Eyes has set aside his quest for vengeance and become a good guy because he started out as a bad guy.
Which I honestly...
Or an anti-hero.
I did not see him going against the Arashikage coming at all. I did not see that happening. I didn't know how I felt about it at the time, but I definitely didn't think it was going to go down that way. And so by the end of it, when he's hanging there by this chain wrapped around his wrist, it was a full circle moment where he's let go of... Not only did he let go his hate of Cobra, that what they've done to him, but he's maybe even accepted that this could very well be the end. He's done something noble. And if this be the end, then it is. And then
there's nothing more noble than seeing your enemy vanquished by a giant.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, yeah, you're right about that. Yeah.
His quest for vengeance has ended because it has been
because
served.
That's it. It's like, he didn't learn a lesson at all. He followed through with it. Hang on a minute. He didn't change a bit.
He's a good guy now because the Anacondas told us so.
Yeah, okay.
But we end up with a scene where Granny decides that because Storm Shadow used the artifact, he's now disinherited. He can no longer become head of the Arashikage, which he's very incensed by, and like this basically is the point at which he snaps. And he's like, to serve? That's all I ever get to do? Serve this family? Like, forget that. I'm done serving. I'm gonna find a new master. And tears off in search of that. We end up with a scene of him boarding a plane with the Baroness on board, and she offers him a new army. And you're like, I mean, talk us through your thought process on that, Xazyl.
Well, look...
Because you thought it was a bit strange. You were like, wow, so he's going to run straight from having a hissy fit about being disinherited with the Arashikage straight into the arms of Cobra. Like, what's his logic there?
Yeah, like up until this point, they were enemies. There was no alignment with Cobra on his side. He was firmly against them. I don't think up until the point where he fired, used the gem. I don't think he did anything wrong. He was pretty passionate in moments, and he had a little bit of an emotional outburst from time to time. But I wholeheartedly believed that everything he did for the betterment of his clan. Even bringing in Snake Eyes, even though that ended up being momentarily the worst decision he could have made, I still think he did it for the purpose of strengthening the clan for when he took over. That he saw someone that could be someone that was not only a friend, but a close brother and someone that he could trust. And when that trust was broken, you felt that. But I didn't... And I feel like he wasn't banished or anything. He left on his own accord. He was still part of the family. But I feel like his willingness to side with Cobra it just felt unnatural and unearned, and just a means to an end. And after I voiced that, Stephen came in with a perfectly reasonable, logical way that he would do that, which was...
Storm Shadow joins Cobra not because he wants an army or whatever Baroness is offering. I mean, his secret motivation is really to betray Cobra. He wants to go deep cover. He wants to get to the bottom of who Cobra Command is and who's pulling the strings, because it's Cobra that is responsible ultimately for this attack on the Arashikage. So Storm Shadow is not betraying the Arashikage. He's going Chuckles on us, man. He's going method. He's having to infiltrate Cobra from the inside. Now that his motivation is no longer to find the identity of the Hard Master's killer as it was in previous continuities, his motivation now is to undo Cobra Command from the inside. And Baroness has just offered him his in. It couldn't have happened more perfectly.
Well, whether or not that happens, I guess what that does do is align Snake Eyes' mission of finding Storm Shadow to bring him back to the Arashikage.
Yeah.
Right? Cool. To bring them back to the clan, it aligns with that, with his invite into GI Joe from Scarlet. Now, Scarlet gives Snake Eyes the intel that his father was actually a part of GI Joe.
Yes. And a folder called the Bright Sword Incident.
Given to her
by Joe Colton.
Joe Colton. I thought I was going to hear General Hawk, but Joe Colton was name dropped.
General GI Joe Colton. Yep.
That was a surprise. But then, yeah, so what was done in the file?
She hands him the intel that he's been looking for practically his whole life. The file on his father's death, and gives us the information that actually his father, Snake Eyes' dad, was a G.I. Joe, and he was assassinated by Cobra in this Bright Sword incident. And then goes one further in saying that if ever he chose to join them, there'd be a place for him on the G.I. Joe team.
I was kind of hoping that they would name drop some sort of code name that his father had used. But it turns out that his father was so undercover that not even G.I. Joe knew that he had Snake Eyes as his son. Which is why that they never really went looking for him. That's why nobody went looking for him.
All right. Whew. I think that was Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins. Zays, can you rate it?
I do. I rate it. It had moments in it that I felt potentially could have taken me out of the film, but if you look at it in a certain way, if you come at it in a way that you're not solidified in the lore of the past, then I think you can have a good time with this movie. I think it's a good action movie. It's a good Japanese fighting movie. It's got great action. The story from start to finish, it's got an arc, and it leaves it open to a sequel. But if there were never a sequel, you know what we've missed? The introduction of Snake Eyes' costume.
Such an afterthought.
It is, though. That's why we didn't even bring it up.
Literally, they're like, "Oh, you want to go after Storm Shadow and bring him back, or go after Tommy?" Because Tommy only adopts the name Storm Shadow once he joins Cobra. But I said this to you at the time. Doesn't lore maintain that the word Arashikage translates as Storm Shadow? So him making this big moment of adopting the name Storm Shadow is a bit of a hollow moment, because Storm Shadow was always the English translation of Arashikage. It's not like you've suddenly given birth to this new persona. It was always there. Anyways, my point is, Snake Eyes just gets handed the costume. Like, if you're going after Tommy, you're gonna need this. Boom. Inexplicably, he's got this costume, and that's it. Roll credits.
Well, it does have the symbol on it, which it was a little bit weird because he didn't earn it.
The Arashikage symbol.
Yeah.
Yeah, because did he fail the trials?
He failed.
Yeah.
He failed the trials, but yeah, they still have the symbol.
Wait, hang on. In the end, he succeeds in the snake pit.
Yeah, but nobody gets a second chance at the snake pit. You die in the snake pit. That doesn't count.
It seems the rules of the Arashikage clan are flexible in points and very hard in other points. But
it's poor Storm Shadow by the end of it. I felt for Storm Shadow. Right,
absolutely.
But
he has my sympathies as well.
So I guess as far as rating it is concerned, for better or worse, if you subtract the GI Joe portion of this movie and you called it any other movie, it would be a great movie. It'd be a great action movie. You cement that into the GI Joe world, you have a great introduction into that. There's enough there to pull you in to want a sequel. It's not too on the nose, except for that one limp Yo Joe. But yeah, I'll go see it again.
Where does it situate itself in your favour in terms of the 3 live action films?
Oh boy. There were 2 other G.I. Joe live action films.
Very good. I think you just answered my question.
It's not as good as G.I. Joe the movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, no Sarge.
That's right. If it had Sergeant Slaughter in it. Oh, there's no after credits stinger either.
Well, there's after a few credits have rolled, you get the scene with Baroness approaching Storm Shadow in a plane, offering him a job with Cobra, and some very obvious Johnny Walker Black Label product placement. Yeah.
But you can barely even call that a mid-credit. It's like a 30 seconds into the graphic...
overload. Bam, those credits were colourful.
But yeah, don't sit through the rest of the credits unless you're interested to know all the hard men and women, all the men and women that worked hard on this movie.
Who may also have been hard.
They may have, yeah. Hard on master. What do you rate it? Where do you put it?
Oh, man, it is... I mean, hot take, everybody. This is the best live-action G.I. Joe movie there ever has been. It put my mind at ease almost immediately with its tone, because it sought to do more than just be action figures being clunked together. That's Rise of Cobra. Or a vehicle for a larger-than-life persona like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, as in Retaliation. This film built relationships and intricate trust amongst characters and betrayals and then retribution and then redemption ultimately. Like, there was scene work in this that I bought hook, line and sinker, and that's very gratifying for me. It tells me that it was in the hands of a team of filmmakers, cast, crew, designers, producers who actually cared to make a film that would sit well with an adult audience. And that was huge points in my book. The fact that it wasn't an effects-laden, huge stakes film is also great. Because I've always believed that, like, particularly with an origin story, but like at any level of G.I. Joe, you can tell a more human and personal story and make it compelling. It doesn't always have to be the end of the world hanging in the balance. Like, the most interesting thing are characters. And I must say, this film remixes what we know to be the origin story of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow and the Arashikage and G.I. Joe and Cobra. Remixes them in a way that, look, take nothing away from Larry Hama's original work. This kept me guessing because I didn't go into it. Like, I didn't predict what was coming next. And that's a very, very refreshing notion to have as a lifelong G.I. Joe fan. I was like, wow, this film is actually surprising me. It's pulling some punches, some sucker punches that I never saw coming. Like, what? Snake Eyes is betraying the Arashikage? This is huge. Snake Eyes is... He gets his start in his G.I. Joe career essentially working for Cobra. That's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
That hasn't been done before. So, my litmus test of this was like, if Hollywood sees fit to rewrite the origin story of this compelling G.I. Joe character, the central character of the G.I. Joe mythology, they better have a damn good story to tell. And to my great relief, they did. There were a few fumbles, not gonna lie. Moments where I was like, anyone who is a hater or a doubter of this film will have plenty of ammunition at this point. But
if you go in hating it, you can latch onto things.
Absolutely. Yeah. As is true of any fan film, really. But I went in just with zero expectation, and that is when you are pleasantly surprised. So I'm on board, guys. Yo Joe, everybody.
No. Yo Joe.
Yeah, just before the team shot happens, Yo Joe. Like, oh, okay, you had me at Joe.
Throw us a limp Yo Joe, guys.
Zays, let's wrap this show up, brother.
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank everybody that jumped over from the GI Joburg community to watch the Slaughterhouse Wrestling Championship happen live. The Sergeant Slaughter versus Nemesis Enforcer match.
If you haven't seen it, the link will be in the description below. Check it out. Xazyl opened his PlayMotion account with an excellent story. Love it.
You might even hear a few familiar voices, which was very, very appreciative of getting the Joburg team on board.
Yeah, you're welcome. You write a mean script, man. You had me saying some wrestling terminology I ain't never said before.
So yeah, definitely do jump on over and watch that, because the next one will be coming up. It'll be, I won't ruin it for you. Check it out. Wait till the end. Just like every good Marvel movie, there's a stinger at the end. Keep an eye out for that.
Ooh, yeah!
But yeah, thank you to everyone that did tune in on that one. I appreciate it.
Sweet. And GI Joburg, you can catch us anywhere. Podcatchers, YouTube, Instagram, Podbean, Facebook group. Hey, check that out too. And if you really love us, consider joining our Patreon. Link in the description below. But yes, to anyone who has checked out Snake Eyes, GI Joe Origins, let us know what you think. Scroll down to the comments section and weigh in. If you think that we are way off on our appraisal of this film, let us know. I'd be interested to hash it out in the comments thread.
Also, tell us which one was your favourite of the 3 trials. Was I wrong in thinking that the first one was the best one?
Oh man, low-hanging fruit if you ask me. The other 2 were... what? Anyways, it's been a blast. Catch you guys next week with another episode. Who knows what we might sink our teeth into. Hopefully Rob and Paul will find some way of seeing this film and we'll be able to get their opinions as well. But this has been at least Steven Xazyl's review of the film. And I think that's all we have to say about that. Yo Joburg, everybody.
Yo Joe.
No, wait.
Yo Joe. Just give it a limp Yo Joe. Berg.
Welcome to the Slaughterhouse.
Eddie's disease.